A passenger jet took off, flew through an entire day and an entire night, watched the sun come up again, and only then finally touched down. 24 hours and 23 minutes in the air, without landing even once. Airbus and Qantas pulled this off with a plane called the A350-1000ULR, flying it all the way from Melbourne, Australia, back to the Airbus home base in Toulouse, France. And while it sounds like just another record, this one quietly did something bigger. It changed the long-running battle between Airbus and Boeing in a way that's hard to undo. Here's what happened and why it matters so much. First, let's understand why anyone would fly a plane for a full day on purpose. This test was part of a huge project by Qantas called Project Sunrise. The dream is simple to say, but incredibly hard to do. Qantas wants to fly people non-stop from Australia's East Coast all the way to London and New York. No stops, no changing planes, just one long, straight shot. For as long as planes have existed, this was basically impossible. Sydney to London is around 9,500 nautical miles. That's one of the longest routes you could ever try to fly. No normal passenger plane could cross that much distance in one go while still carrying a useful number of people. There simply wasn't enough room for both passengers and all the fuel such a trip demands. So travelers between Australia and those cities always had to stop somewhere along the way, adding hours to an already exhausting journey. The A350-1000ULR is Airbus's answer to that problem. Those letters, ULR, stand for Ultra Long Range. It's a special version of a plane that already exists, but reworked to fly much farther. The key change is an extra fuel tank added in the back, giving the plane the enormous fuel supply it needs to stay up for over 20 hours. This test was the big exam. Could the plane really stay airborne that long in the real world and behave exactly as promised? It passed. During that full day in the sky, the plane's systems kept running smoothly the whole time. It burned fuel at exactly the rate engineers predicted, which is huge because it means the plane can make these giant trips and still land with a safe amount of fuel to spare. Nothing broke. Nothing surprised them. The plane simply did what it was built to do for 24 straight hours. That's the kind of proof you can't argue with. For Qantas, this brings the dream very close to real. They've already ordered these special planes and plan to launch the first nonstop flights in 2027. But here's an interesting detail. These planes won't be packed with as many seats as usual. Instead of cramming in the maximum number of passengers, Qantas is fitting only around 238 seats. Fewer people means more room for fuel, and it also means more comfort, which matters a lot when you're stuck on a plane for nearly a full day. Qantas is designing these cabins specifically for the marathon. There's even going to be a special well-being zone, an open area where passengers can get up, stretch, and move around during the flight. The whole cabin is being built to fight jet lag and make that endless journey feel less brutal. And for travelers, the payoff is obvious. Right now, getting from Sydney to London means at least one stop, which drags the trip out for hours and adds the headache of switching planes. A true non-stop flight erases all of that. It's especially appealing to business travelers who happily pay extra to save time and skip the hassle. For them, flying straight through is worth every penny. Now, here's where this record really shakes up, the Airbus versus Boeing fight. For years, these two giant plane makers have battled over who builds the best jets. And on many fronts, it's a close, fierce competition. But this ultra long-range corner of the market, right now, Airbus basically owns it alone. That's the part that stings for Boeing. Boeing has an impressive giant plane of its own, the 777X, but that plane is built for a different job. It's designed to carry huge crowds on busy routes, like packing as many people as possible between two major cities. It's a big bus for crowded roads. What it isn't built for is this specific mission, flying insanely far on a route that doesn't have massive crowds, just enough premium passengers willing to pay for a nonstop trip. So Airbus and Boeing have quietly ended up chasing two different goals. Boeing went for maximum size, Airbus went for maximum distance. And with this 24-hour test, Airbus just proved its plane can actually deliver on that extreme distance. It planted a flag in a piece of the market where Boeing currently has no real answer. If an airline wants to fly the longest routes on Earth, there's really only one plane maker to call right now. That's a powerful position to be in. The ripple effects go way beyond just Australia, too. Every airline in the world is watching this. Because if this plane can conquer Sydney to London, it can probably open up other brutal, long routes that used to require stops. Faraway city pairs that never seemed possible before suddenly look doable. Airbus didn't just prove one flight works. It hinted at a whole new map of nonstop routes that could exist in the future. Of course, there's still work left before passengers can climb aboard. The plane needs full approval from the safety regulators, the officials who must sign off before any new type of flight can carry paying customers. But this endurance test is exactly the kind of powerful evidence that helps win that approval. It shows, under real conditions, that the plane can do the job safely. Engineers also walked away with mountains of useful data from the flight, which they'll study to fine-tune everything before the first real passengers step on in 2027. Step back and look at the big picture, and you can see why this flight matters more than a normal record. Aviation moves forward in leaps like this. Every time a plane can fly a little farther or a little more efficiently, brand new connections between distant places suddenly become possible. This one flight is a giant leap in that story. It's proof that even after decades of progress, the limits of flying are still being pushed. So while the headline is a cool record, 24 hours in the air, the real story is bigger. Airbus and Qantas didn't just keep a plane up for a day. They proved that the age of true non-stop flying between opposite ends of the Earth is almost here. And in doing so, Airbus quietly grabbed a lead in one corner of its endless rivalry with Boeing that will be very, very hard for anyone to take away.